Hello and welcome to episode 119 of the Greenway Outdoors podcast. My name is Kyle.
I'm AJ.
I'm Ryan.
And we are joined by our friend Nolan May over from Carlson's Choke Tubes. Now, there's an older episode floating around somewhere of an episode with Scott Carlson from back in the day. And Nolan, you are the new full-fledged owner of Carlson's Choke Tubes, isn't that right?
Yes, myself and some business partners, but yes, we purchased Carlson's a couple of years ago.
Now, You knew Scott.
Yes, I've been bugging him for years. So I grew up in the area out here in western Kansas, and he was my gun dealer and whatnot growing up. But he had his little gun shop here, and then was doing choke tubes as well. And we mentor and friend. He got me into the industry at a young age, and I think sold me my first couple shotguns. So I asked him if the warranty's still good on that. But.
So he was kind of your mentor. You kind of learned from him a little bit, and he was the local guy in town for the business. What age do you think you were when you decided you were going to want to buy it?
Oh man, probably mid-20s or so.
Okay.
I started an indoor gun range in the Kansas City area and was always looking for a reason or a way to get back to western Kansas to some rural life. And I found it kind of stupid, but on my days off, I'd drive 6 hours back home to hunt coyotes because we had more permission out here.
Yeah.
And just looking for a reason to get closer to family land and back in the area.
Yeah, I can understand that. What about Carlson specifically was the target, other than him being a good friend?
Gotcha.
What is it about the brand and the product that made you be like, that's what I want to put my name on?
Yeah, so it's a great business. Scott's built a great business for the last 35 plus years. Very niche. He's built a marketplace and network of distributors and dealers, and he's just got a great product from the get-go. I think he was one of the first, or only one of the first, that had the electronic patterning board 20-some years ago. So it's one thing to take a steel pipe and make it into a choke tube, but to actually have some data behind your decisions on what you're doing through that pipe and what material you use was, revolutionary at the time. And it's just it's a neat business, and it touches everything that I like, all sorts of birds to clays and everything. I mean, so it felt natural to me.
What's an electronic patterning board, for those of you who don't know, including us?
They're very common. No.
Yeah, you don't know?
I actually just bought the latest generation here this summer, but it's essentially a steel box that's got paper inside that's exactly 50 by 50 with motorized pulleys and whatnot in there. You shoot. The door closes. There's a series of cameras that takes a variety of high-definition pictures of the pattern and runs it through 27 algorithms, basically, and will give you pattern density percentages, a lot of different numbers, and that's how we work on various choke designs and pair them up with certain ammunition over the years.
Okay.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is super cool. So basically to create a new product or to fine-tune current products, you use the electronic patterning board to just do a bunch of tests with different ammos. And that's something that's kind of unique to Carlson's is, and I'll tell you, for the people too lazy to pattern a choke tube, look and see what kind of ammo you're using and then just pair it with the correct choke tube that goes with it. For an example, if you're shooting bismuth, you guys make the bismuth busters. If people are using heavy shot, you guys make heavy shot chokes. If people that are using, so you kind of make chokes designed to do well with different common loads that people are buying.
Yes, and it's a probability game. And, no two shotguns will shoot the same, but there's close to 30,000 shots in our database that I can go back and tell you the yardage, number of pellets in a 3, 10, 15, and 30 inch circle at whatever yards we're shooting at, and being able to analyze that over time amongst the various constrictions versus mechanical constrictions, it's pretty telling. I'm a numbers nerd.
Yeah.
Really like it, but yes, it does make a difference.
I always laugh because you got that okay pattern behind you.
Yeah, it's not okay. It's a bad pattern.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but it's always behind. Is that just to make you work harder? Is that like us posting no's from different networks all over our walls around here? Is that what that is?
Yeah, it's a reminder on some failures and what brought on some successes. So
That's pretty cool.
this one never made it to the market.
I
That's
bet.
why we always go to the pattern.
I bet. Um, talking about the different products that Carlson's has, I want to jump back real quick though for our listeners that maybe are like, wait, what are they talking about? Choke tube specifically. So this is like the really dumbed down version, so I'll just make it 60 seconds. But when you hunt with a shotgun or shoot a shotgun, think of it kind of like one of those old garden hoses where you'd have to twist it. And if you twisted it way to the left, then it would make like a mist and be super wide and go in kind of every direction. That would be like a very open choke for that hose. And as you tighten it down, you could get it all the way down to where it squirts a pretty fine spray, and it would go a lot farther. So when you tighten the choke, it brings everything together and makes it go farther. And when you open the choke, it makes it wider and a little bit more broad. So it's kind of like a hose. So when you buy a shotgun, and whether you're going to go shoot clays or hunt or anything like that, you should have like a rough idea of what the shotgun shells that you use look like when they come out of the end of the gun. And it may be like, oh, you just buy shotgun shells and you just buy a shotgun and run it through and everything should be fine. But we found that that's not the truth. I mean, and imagine, I've been telling people this for years before I knew all this. I hit that clay. It's not my fault. But if the spray isn't correct or the pattern isn't good, you could theoretically shoot at a clay and have it not get hit even though your spray was around it. And I always call it spray because I like ingrain that in people's head. Like shotgun shoots a spray of pellets. You know what I mean? And that helps people understand the concept of the choke tube and why it's so important. And in our advertisements, you'll always hear me say, Carlson's choke tube, the only choke tube we've ever purchased. And I can actually say that. You guys didn't have like a slogan I loved, so we used that because I felt like that made a statement. You know what I mean? It's the only choke tube I've ever purchased. And that was because growing up, number one, Carlson's were affordable. They were available everywhere. And they always worked. So it was like, there you go. And those are like the three main pillars that I saw in Carlson's. And that's why we wanted to work with you guys for the TV show itself, because it's something we knew our customers and our viewers could go get anywhere. So moving on to that, now you can kind of understand the electronic patterning board and how that worked. It's running that data to see how good the spray looks. And what makes a good spray would be, I would say, an even distribution across a reasonable area at the distance you plan on shooting something. Yeah.
In layman's term.
So if you buy a shotgun, it's going to come with a bunch of standard choke tubes right out of the factory. And the problem with that is this. Oftentimes, and this is a sign of quality you can see right away, pick up that full choke and see what it says on it. It'll say, do not use for steel shot. And why is that? Well, if you're using lower grade materials and lower grade metals, then it can't handle the steel shot because steel is very, very, very hard. And the reason, why do gun manufacturers use lower grade choke tubes? Well, think about it. If a choke tube made out of really high grade stuff like Carlson's makes theirs out of costs $50-$60 a choke tube, or then imagine if you added $150 to the price of your shotgun when everybody else is running the cheapies, you would price yourself out real fast based on the choke tubes. So that has kind of what led the market down this path of like needing aftermarket choke tubes and why they've all gone cheaper with choke tubes. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would. That's a fair statement.
And that's again why I always feel like with our show and anything we do, like the goal is that we set people up for success, that they can go out and do what we do in the show. And I think choke tubes are often overlooked. I think the quality of ammunition you use is overlooked. Shotgun shells is overlooked. When I always say a shotgun and a rifle are nothing more than a fancy tube of metal with a poker. And it's really what you screw into the end of it, and it's really what ammo you're firing are typically the variables that are going to be the biggest difference between your success and failures as far as the equipment goes. So that's a little bit of my spiel on why we work with Carlson's, but then I wanted to get into the technical side a little bit more with you. When it comes to Carlson's, like you've jumped in, you're taking over, what are some of the big, I guess, hurdles that you've run into from taking on such a big company? Obviously, Carlson's is well known. The distribution's huge because you guys are in every store there ever was. So, like, what hurdles have you run into jumping in feet first the way you did?
Sure. So I wouldn't necessarily call them hurdles, but I thought I had an idea of how it was, but my eyes were open. It was like drinking from a garden hose or a fire hose, excuse me.
One of the
That's the
fire
first.
hoses
And
with the tight choke.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's so many little aspects and scenarios that I never would have thought of. And luckily, Scott stayed on for a transition period, and I learned a lot during that time. And we have the same team here that's been here forever, and they're a great group of guys. But to answer the question more specifically, I guess is we have close to 1,900 SKUs. Like that's ridiculous.
Oh,
A joke for almost every gun and every scenario. We've got it.
right.
But that was, and then just the different tiers of, we were kind of one of the more unique distribution aspects because everything's here in tiny Atwood, Kansas. Like I think the town is 1,300 people, maybe.
Right.
And so that was one of the bigger things that you can't plan on Mother Nature wise out here. We have the coldest of cold and the hottest of hots, and FedEx is doing their best to get here when they can. And just the amount of freight that comes in and out of our warehouse here is impressive.
So there's only 1,300 people in your town.
Don't quote me on that, but it's each town out here is the county seat, basically county seat, and they're roughly every 25 to 30 miles away.
Yeah.
And it's very rural.
Yeah, that'll
I
keep.
love it.
Well, that's yeah. I mean, obviously, a lot of times when people buy out companies, especially with new partners and stuff like that, you see the original staff kind of get let go. What led to your decision to keeping everybody?
Oh, I mean, they're great people, hardworking. One of the things that I first noticed when I was here for several full days at the very beginning was the sense of urgency. You would think that we were doing open heart surgery here, but that's just how dedicated they are for customer service and getting product out the door. Like it was really refreshing, actually, to see. And it's one of the things that we pride ourselves on is the customer service here. Like if you call the phone number on the website, and we try to get it in 2 rings, but there's no phone tree, and you're talking. You'll get me, you'll get a couple of the other guys in the customer service area, and we're all hunters and shooters. And Gage, one of my newer guys here, he actually shot a really neat, wild, color-faced pheasant over the weekend.
Nice.
Like, are you gonna mount that? Because if not, I am.
Plus,
So
his name's Gage, and he works at Carlson's Choke Tubes, and he hunts pheasants.
Yeah,
if that isn't
misspelled, it's missing a U, but it'll work.
All right, yeah, put that on a dating profile out in Kansas.
Yeah, right.
Have it'd be like 650 women that are out there.
Right.
Have them swiping right,
Half of them are your cousins.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. A third or more, it should be fine, right?
I think so.
I think what's the rule? Isn't it like you got to be third or farther to get married,
I think
right?
with the Amish, it's second.
Second's rough, because that's your dad's cousin.
Yeah.
No, that's your dad's cousin's kid.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's tight.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyhow, jeez, we always end up down these roads. Going back to what we were talking about, so that's kind of the takeover. You liked all the people there, and there's only so many people in the town you could hire, so that works out good too. But everybody's sense of urgency is good, and your guys' customer service is great. One of the biggest features on the website that I think is extremely helpful is like the choke tube selector. So you would think I have a 12 gauge, I'll get a 12 gauge choke tube. Stop. That's not how it works. It's the stupidest, most ridiculous system ever, and I blame the gun manufacturers. But basically what happens is there's like different threadings, which is what the choke tube screws into in like a ton of different shotguns. And just because you're like, oh, I'll buy the Benelli threading, does not mean it's going to work on your Benelli. Matter of fact, it probably won't. It's like they all have names that would lead you to believe they fit in a certain gun, but there's not really that much rhyme or reason to the names either, and it's just chaotic. And for 12 gauges, there's so many different options, which is why you have 1,900 SKUs. That's what leads to this. You would have 30 products for a 12 gauge, but then you have to multiply that 30 by the different threadings, which gets you up way high. Is there like a number of threadings that you guys count? Is there like what? Do we even know?
Yes, we do. So currently in the current catalog, just in 12 gauge extended sporting clays, there's 19 different choke systems. So the different lengths and diameters and thread pitches.
And that's just 12 gauge.
Correct.
And then you get into 20, and then you get in,
Yeah.
10s, and all those different things. So
Do they do that to make it like sort of a commodity? Like,
I don't think it was intentional, to be honest with you. I think over the last 40 years, kind of since uh, removable chokes became a thing,
nobody
each
communicated.
machine no, and if they did, um, a decimal point got missed here or there. I mean, we're talking less than a thousandth of an inch difference, and a choke tube won't work in a different one.
that's crazy.
Jeez.
So either tooling got dull or they bought. Yeah, it's. I don't understand it, but that's why we have quite a few different products.
Although that might not have hurt you too much, because if
Yeah.
every 12 gauge choke worked in every gun, then every time someone got a new 12 gauge, they were done with their choke tube.
Oh yeah, I'm not mad about it. How do you sell more choke tubes? But
You guys are actually running like a behind the scenes thing where you're like
switch it up.
You're like convincing gun manufacturers, like, if you tweak it this much, you'd have a lot more effective. Yeah, just to keep the spread going. Yeah, because every shotgun, even under the same manufacturers, they'll have different threadings. The same manufacturer makes 2 different 12 gauges, and they'll have 2 different threadings to them. But anyhow, I wanted to get into a little bit too, so people know about what the future of Carlson's looks like. We talked a little bit about the hurdles and the difficulties and stuff, but what would you say is the future of Carlson's? Do you guys want to start new products? Are you going to fine-tune the products you have? Are you going to focus on customer service? Like, what is the future of Carlson's choke tubes?
sure. So it's a combination of all three. The main objective for me in year one was learn as much as possible and don't rock the boat. Um, and now I've learned enough and been playing with a couple new choke designs. It's about all I'm going to tell you at this point.
Okay.
But just know that it's got to be proven on the patterning board, and it's got to have at least 10,000 rounds run through it type thing. I'm expecting, if all goes well, if it makes it through the gauntlet, that hopefully third quarter 24 we might have something out there. But again, there's a lot of road that can disrupt it.
Sure.
So one thing that we're working on, and then from there, it's every year it kind of becomes a little bit easier because a new shot type or style comes out. So when bismuth came on, when tungsten came on, and then now we're starting to see the growth in these larger shot sizes of pure tungsten, which is insane, and I'm excited about. They're pricey, but the yardages, from a probability standpoint, if everything that pencils out in the equation is reflected in real world applications, it's going to be impressive, especially for predator and big game.
That's pretty cool.
We'll see.
Yeah, tungsten is, what is it, like 160% or something like that of lead, somewhere in that ballpark?
Density by weight.
Yeah, it's somewhere in that ballpark. I know we shoot copper-plated bismuth as of right now from Boss, and we've been pretty happy with that. Bismuth, I know they were having a lot of problems with, it basically breaking apart when fracturing when hitting game. But with the copper plating, I've really seen that kind of go away, and they have a new shell called the War Chief, and it's buffered, and that between the buffering, taking the pressure off of the bottom set, string of the load, mixed with obviously running through a Carlson choke tube, but mixed with the copper plating, we haven't really seen any of those fragment issues. But I know that was something that was like you said, you come up with a new product and it's like, oh, bismuth is 98% of what lead is, or roughly somewhere in that ballpark as far as density goes, where steel is only like 65, 70. It's like, oh, this is way better. But then there's this new issue, and you're always trying to solve something. But they've done a really good job over there doing that. Tell everyone, and this is a story I wanted to get into too, is I got to see it, and I don't know if anyone will get to see it before this podcast or not, but you shot one stinking huge buck.
Yes, I almost pushed the podcast off today because I didn't get them arrowed until yesterday, and I was planning on hunting today because the weather finally was getting cooler.
Yeah.
But the stars aligned, so I was blessed with a He's got 26 scoreable points. I haven't had him scored yet, but just a giant mule deer, and was able to finally get in the archery range of him yesterday. Um, I've been losing sleep. My wife's been thinking that I went insane, and I probably did. But I found this buck less than a week ago, and it's in a bad spot to hunt with a bow. It's in between two ag fields. It's a tiny little draw that's overgrown with pigweed. Like, there really shouldn't be any deer in there type thing. Right off the highway, and when I saw him, I think the next night there's 4 trucks driving around the section just kind of creeping. And so the clock was on. Rifle season doesn't start until next week. It was one of those things that if I went in there and bumped him,
Was this state land or private?
private, look on some of our family's land, luckily. But it's big deer.
People are watching them though.
Things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And biggest deer I've seen on the hoof, and missed a fair amount of work lately because I can't focus, but it's all right. And yesterday morning, I was going to go in there. As finally the wind was going to be perfect from the north. I was going to be able to get up into his little bedding area at dark. Got there, checked the forecast again, but wind changed from the south. I'm like, that's not good. So I was sitting across the draw, and it was super foggy. It's never foggy in western Kansas because it's super dry.
Yeah.
And I thought I saw him walking out like 350 yards away, going the wrong way. So long story short, ran through the draw. It didn't run. I went as slow as I could, but it was just dry pigweed, and that probably sounded like a bulldozer going through there.
Yeah.
And get up to my spot, and 2 hours go by, and I don't see a deer. I was like, I bumped him. I was sick. And then through the fog, I see when you kind of imagine things.
Yeah.
Coming over the hill.
Well, and when you're deer hunting, everything looks like a deer.
I was like, oh, those are just corn stalks. And then it picked up and kept coming. I'm like, oh my gosh, here he comes. And he was nosing a doe around in front of me for like 30 minutes at, I'm guessing, 50, 60 yards, but neither of my rangefinders worked. It was so foggy. And I wasn't going to guess and fling an arrow. And they kind of walked off. And about a half hour later, a small buck came into my little pocket that I was in and was giving me, the up, down, trying to
figure you out.
Yeah, I thought I was in trouble then, and he slowly walked to the front of the little pocket I was in. That big buck must have seen him. The little buck blew out of there, and then the big one, my shooting window, I'm in these weeds, is, I don't know, 5 feet wide.
Yeah.
You can't see him until he's in front of you. I saw the tips of antlers coming, but he was sprinting. He sprinted across my shooting lane, and I was just, that's it. It's over. Continued to stand there. I'm just standing in the weeds trying to hold still. And like 45 minutes later, I can see him coming back the other way. Just can see the top of his rack. And I knew it was him. And he stepped out, gave him, and
he stopped at
32 yards. Yeah.
He stopped in the 5-foot window that you had?
Somehow, by the grace of God, yeah.
Awesome.
32 yards, and the arrow found his mark, and he piled up 60 yards later. So
AJ and I call that hitting him with the brat. Yeah. It
works every time.
It really does. It's like it's got to be annoying because the thing is, there is no prep for them on that. They only hear the brat once. They only get bratted once in their whole life, and it's too late then.
Yeah. Unless, I bet they might learn quick.
Yeah, if someone missed.
A few bad shooters,
yeah.
you hear that, and you get out of there.
Yeah. You're like, there's always a loud noise after that. Yeah, we saw the pictures of it. That's an unbelievable buck, but that's a cool story. That's a cool story.
I was very blessed and got lucky and everything.
What are you going to do with him?
Oh, he went straight to the taxidermist this morning, so.
Nice.
Hopefully replace this crappy pattern behind me.
There you go. There you go. Did they give you a quote on how long it was going to be?
No, he knows I'm going to be impatient on it, so.
Okay.
It's a typical taxidermist speak, but he's a good one.
2 years.
Yeah, we've never had
never had good luck.
We've never had good luck ever, and we've tried all over the country, and we've never had good luck. Matter of fact, I take that back though. The Buffalo guy was exactly a year like he said he would.
What about the Hawaii guy? Although it ended up working.
Yeah, I got to give the Hawaii guy all the credit in the world. Listen to this.
Come on.
Yeah, he also sucked though. It's like what my dad said. You're gonna like this. My dad, tool and die guy, right? And he said that his famous words to his customers were, You can get 2 of the next 3 things I'm going to list, but you can't have all 3 of them. You can get it fast, you can get it made well, or you can get it cheap. You can pick 2 of those, but you can't have all 3. And with taxidermy, I feel like you got to accept you're in the same boat there, Ryan. But we were in Hawaii. We did an access deer hunt. This is actually a episode that's out there. While we were there hunting, we ended up shooting 3 nice buck access deer. And we were talking to the guy there. He's like, oh, I got a guy that does European mounts, and he'll do them for you. And he's like, it'll be $150 cash, and that includes shipping to the mainland. I almost said the United States.
He always says that.
I know, I always say the United States, but the mainland. I live in the 1950s, okay? When it was 49 states, like the good Lord intended. But anyhow, the so we end up going to this guy, and we get his cell phone number. We call him, and we meet him, and he's doing a roofing job, and he's like clearly not in charge of the roofing team. Like, so he's like a grunt doing roofing or whatever. And he comes down. He's like, "Yeah, I'll do it." And we've got these 3 heads, and there's flies everywhere because it's like Hawaii, you know. And so he's like, "Here, just put them in this garbage can, and then I'll send them out to you." And he's like, "That's $450 because it's $150 cash." And we're like, "Okay." And so Jeff hands him. I wasn't part of the planning on this, by the way. So Jeff hands him $450 to a man in Hawaii that we are never gonna see again. Okay, hands him $450 cash. We get back in the van. First thing I say, Ryan's like, "How'd that go?" I go, "We'll never see those heads again."
Instantly.
I was like, not a chance in hell. So that happened in it was like November?
2019, yep.
Yeah, November 2019.
Should I go grab it?
You can go grab the one, yeah. I think the worst of them's here. He'll go grab it for you, Nolan, so you can see it. But anyhow,
I love that.
Yeah, we get dude, it's funny. So he calls me, or he texts me right around Christmas time. So it's only about a month and a half. And he goes, "Hey, what wood do you want these things on?" And he like sends me a few options. I was like, holy shit. I wrote him off. I was like, we lost $450 and we deserve to. So he sends it. Is it not here?
It's here.
Oh, getting it off the wall.
Jeff.
Oh, Jeff glued it to the wall.
Yeah.
We'll send you a picture, Nolan. But anyhow, the guy, so then I couldn't believe it. He ships him, sends me a tracking label. I'm like, this is unbelievable. And he did it for so cheap. Everything in Hawaii was so expensive, and the $450 included shipping. I'm like, I got to think $250 of it was shipping, and then $50 of it was wood. This guy made like $100.
Right. He
sends them, they come, and man, he like, no one of them is the same. There's 3. And he like, one of them was most of a skull, but without the nose. The other one was barely the cap, and the other one was somewhere in the middle. But they all sucked in their own way. But I'll tell you what, the antlers are there.
Well, and there's also like,
you know what I mean? It's like the antlers are there for the price. It's like
on the skull, there's like,
this is one we found. This is a dead head we found.
There's like decking screws screwed into the head.
Oh, yeah, not this one. This is a dead head.
Totally visible. So there's 2 screws on each side, and then there's one up higher.
Oh, it's rough. But it's like, I'm still proud of it because we got him.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a good story. But what the hell? When Jeff's like, hands him $450 cash, in 2019, $450 was a whole lot of money to us. I'm like, are you serious right now? I'm like, we are never going to see those again. And then the whole trip, the rest of it, we were just berating Jeffrey. Sure as shit, we kind of got him.
Yep.
We kind of got him. The Greenway Outdoors is brought to you by Ram Trucks. Built to serve. Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Your adventure starts here. Savage Arms. Better comes standard. Nosler Ammunition. World's finest bullets, ammunition, and brass. Boss Shot Shells. Superior made and American made. Carlson's Choke Tube's the only choke tube we've ever purchased. Onyx Hunt. Know where you stand.
If you want to be here, it all starts here. At Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's, we have the widest selection of the quality brands you love to get you outdoors. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, our friendly, knowledgeable outfitters will help you find the right products for your next trip. Shop with confidence with our low price guarantee. Plus, club members save even more on great gear with exclusive member pricing. Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's, voted America's best outdoor retailer.
For every purpose, for every path, for every soul, for every season, there's a Ram.
Legends aren't born, they're created. Introducing Impulse from Savage, the all-new American-made straight-pull bolt-action rifle. Unmatched innovation, fast reloads, maximized efficiency, repeatable accuracy. Welcome to American Straight Pull, only from Savage.
Then another one, we took in 2 turkeys. Ryan got his first turkey. Jeff shot a behemoth. And somehow in the process, they swapped the tails out. Where Jeff's tail is on Ryan's and Ryan's tail is on Jeffrey, which is funny because Jeff's bird was so old he had like the gray tail. And Ryan's bird was like 2.5. So it didn't even look right. And I don't know how they mixed them up or whatever else.
Which we didn't even notice until we posted pictures. And then someone commented, the turkeys are switched. Oh, that's how we found out?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then I was like, holy shit. Because I remembered seeing a gray tail, and we got a gray tail back. It was just on the wrong damn thing. But, yeah, that's our luck for you.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. So I wanted to have you on. I wanted you to tell your big buck story, but also find out for the people that are loyal to Carlson Stroke Tubes, loyal to waterfowl hunting, loyal to dove hunting, loyal to pheasant hunting, all the things you guys partake in, but also competitive shooting. What is Nolan's forte? What is it that you like to do?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. So a little bit of everything. Yesterday I got the deer back to my house, and I live out in the country, and Gage from work happened to drive by. He goes, "Hey, we're running up here to this pond for a quick waterfowl deal. You want to go?" Wife and kids are out of town. I'm like, "Sure." And so went up and got into some mallards and walking out, shot a couple quail. Like yesterday was the perfect Sunday. Like,
yeah.
Just awesome. But to answer your question more specifically, out here, mostly pheasants, doves. Waterfowl's not as big. There's not a whole lot of water, but the little we do have, we watch it quite a bit. Rio turkeys around here. I do like shooting sporting clays, traps. I got a little range at my house. If it's gun or bow related, I love it mostly.
Okay. Yeah, I think that people feel a little bit more comfortable knowing that the guy leading the choke, because Scott Carlson built such a legacy for so long that I think they want to know that the guy taking over is a hunter as well.
Yes.
Was during the whole COVID thing, like and post COVID, was there any like issues with sourcing material? Because I know everyone no one could do anything, it seemed like, during COVID.
Right. And yes, and the lingering effects of that and the supply chain, I think we're probably just now getting over March of this year. So with some of our steel, it's traded as specialty steel, not commodity, and that market is still on the increase. It's plateaued recently, but luckily, when we first took over, Scott had set us up for success. You know, I don't think it's his official motto on buying raw material, but buy early and often and a lot, and that has worked out great for us. And the same thing for packaging and cardboard. It's just the dumbest things you'd never think would be an issue. Everything was an issue everywhere.
During COVID, there was a huge uptick in gun sales. Did you guys see that uptick also?
So luckily, historically, choke tubes are such a niche area of the market that we're protected from much of the upswing and downswings.
Okay.
But to answer your question more specifically, yes, more people were getting into firearms in general and hunting, whatever they called it, not isolation, but we're not supposed to be around people,
right.
Social spreading, whatever it is. And I think it got a lot of people into the outdoors, which is great. And a lot of new time gun owners, whether it was for defense or hunting or both. Some more of our tactical lines did experience a fair amount of growth during that time.
Yeah.
As far as shorter barrels and magazine extensions and tactical chokes.
Right. Yeah, it was such a weird time. More people wanted to be outdoors, so they're getting into hunting and fishing. And then on the other end of it, you had people realizing they needed to be able to be self-sufficient all of a
Right,
sudden they were enlightened by the fact that, well, I should be able to go get my own deer or my bird or whatever. So it was just such an interesting time.
It was. It really spiked. I know a lot of gardening and stuff like that too for people, as far as
Homestead type stuff.
Yeah, it's like you can't go to the grocery store to get food. What are you gonna do? And a lot of people were disheartened by the fact that they didn't know the answer. You know,
Yeah.
not everyone shoots great big mule deer and has a freezer full of meat. Did you get him aged?
Rough age. I'm letting a professional look at it. I didn't want to guess at a score either. I tried to. Scoring non-typicals is not my forte, and I was coming up with an outrageous number. Didn't want to be foolish in saying it out loud. So
I got one.
Wait for the professionals to look at it.
I got one, and I want you to tell me if I'm right when you find out. I
Okay.
think he's 6.5.
Okay.
Yeah. You thinking I'm wrong?
I would. What's that?
You thinking I'm low?
No, I don't. I think you're right on the money.
Okay.
He's right on the edge of going down. I, rubbed his teeth and looked at molars and whatnot. I don't really know what I'm looking at, but I would say he's at least 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I had I know a thing or two about shooting really old bucks that are on the downswing, because I've done, my last 2 were or not the one this year, but the years before. I shot like a 6-point that some people might have passed on. And I shot him, and then when we got a look at him, I was like, oh, he's a good-sized buck, but good body on him, but just a bigger than a basket, but a 6-point, and then we got him aged, and it was like, they're like, yeah, he's 6.5. I was like, oh, so he was on the downswing. And then when he was hanging on the buck pole next to all the other ones, they all look brown, and he looks like gray.
Old as crap.
But the coloring on the one that you sent me, that's kind of where I was, because I obviously didn't see the teeth, but that's kind of what I was thinking, is like that 6.5 mark.
Gray in the face and big Roman nose and floppy head. He's older, I think.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, it's like a 2.5-year-old buck would be like a decent sized buck, but not huge. 3.5, they start to get into what a lot of people would consider a shooter. 4.5, they get pretty big. 5.5, it just, everything has to do with genetics. And then 6.5 is normally their last great year where they start to go down
past their prime.
Yeah, and then a lot of them, once they hit that past the prime and they start to go down, as far as like their antlers don't grow back as big the next year, a lot of them don't make it through that next winter, just from old age. And what we always say is no deer dies of old age, though.
Nothing. What does?
Yeah, there's no nursing homes for deer. So you either got disease, torn apart by predators, or just that's pretty much it. Or they starve. So it's definitely, you took one out, so there's room for next year's fawns. That's for sure.
Yeah, and hopefully he had plenty of rut time to spread some genetics, and I think it's late enough in the year that
have some fun
was accomplished. So.
Oh yeah, plus you lost track of him, from what I can tell, for about 45 minutes when he was near that doe. So he went out with a smile, I'm sure.
Well, there was 2 days last week that he was off campus completely, and I was just an emotional wreck.
Oh, like
somebody hit him with a truck, or someone poached him, or he left for greener pastures. I don't know. I went to a dark place in a hurry, and then he came walking back in on Friday. I was like, oh my goodness.
When after you shot it, was your? Have you ever seen that video of Luke Bryan after he shoots that deer?
God.
When he's in the tree?
You did not do that, did you?
He's like, is he down?
Is he down?
I'm not too proud to say I haven't had buck fever like that in a long time. Like, I shot and listened for like 30 seconds, and I was like, I gotta sit down. I was standing on the ground. I wasn't even in a tree stand.
Right.
I was like, I gotta sit down.
Right. Were you? Did you get buck fever before or after?
Yes.
Yeah. If I saw those antlers coming through the things, man, I like all the TikToks where it's like, when your dad's like, all right, hold still, he's coming, and the kid's like this, like shake it. It is weird.
It was when he was out in front of me for that 30 minutes. I was like, just looking at his feet. I was like, don't glass him anymore. Just don't.
Yeah, getting yourself too wound up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
one last question before we go. I wanted to ask you, so everyone here knows, what makes a good choke tube?
Oh, a lot of things. It starts with the material, and that is one thing that not as many of our competitors do so, but with our It's a pricier material, but it is a premium. It's a 17.4 stainless with a Rockwell hardness close to 43. It's harder to machine. It's harder on the tools, but it's worth it in the long run. That is why with the majority of our choke tubes, you can shoot basically any size, any type of shot through them. That and then some of our choke designs. I mean, some people it just looks like a steel pipe, but I was looking at a couple prints earlier to see if we want to make some tweaks, and there's 57 different machinable callouts on that choke tube blueprint.
Wow.
So I don't think a lot of people know how intricate they actually are, and why Carlson's. I mean, we've got the data, we've got the years of experience behind it, and then our customer service, lifetime warranty, 60-day satisfaction. If your gun's not patterning how you want it to, give me a call. I'll sit down and talk you through it. Send me a picture, what load, what gun, what distance, what choke, and try to give you some pointers.
That's pretty awesome. Do you think? Because here is one of the things that I told you the 3 points on earlier in the podcast why I always bought Carlson's was, number one, they always worked right. Number two, I could always find them. And number three, they didn't break the bank. Do you guys think almost you're underpriced? Because you guys, if you compared you guys to a lot of the competitors would end up being more money. But you guys are using the higher grade steels and the higher grade this. Like, your markup and your profit, the way that you guys have it set up is less than theirs for sure. It's like, did you ever wonder if you're charging too cheap? Or, like, how do you overcome to be like, yeah, we're more affordable, but this is why we're that much better? Is that, like, the whole marketing plan is, like, to...
And that's where it gets tricky. A lot of people relate higher dollar to higher quality, and I can tell you, from my opinion, that's not necessarily the case. And,
right.
We've always wanted to be a premium product at a great price, and that's how I intend to keep it. Especially as a young man in high school on a farmer's permit, driving around at 14, ammo was expensive. I mean, it wasn't, but to a 14 to 25-year-old, like, stuff gets pricey. And, we talk about spending a fortune is getting the waterfowl game. Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So expendable dollars are very important to me and to the company here. And that's why we try to always have a great price.
That's awesome. And the best part, the number one thing you purchased when you bought that company was the fact that you guys got choketube.com. I mean, yeah. Damn, what a win that is. Yeah, don't ever let that lapse. You better have that on automatic renew because that thing's worth some money.
6 credit cards, yes. No, that was some great, I don't know when Scott bought it, back in the 90s, back before the internet was super popular. It was very intelligent to make that move back then.
I remember being a super little kid and going over to Uncle Jim and Aunt Niecy's house, and they had a computer with internet. I was real little, and I was like, and I was like, so what's on the internet? Like, asking that question. And my uncle's like, anything you can think of, it'll come up. And I was like, I'm like, do they have a GIJoe.com? He's like, I bet they do. And I remember going to GIJoe.com and being like, holy shit. And then I just started printing. I just started printing pages. Yeah, that was the first thing. Like, when internet first came out and you were a kid, you wanted to print every page. So I just, like, we go through ink. Like, you and Blee, I was just printing everything. And that was like the big, and then you got to take it home with you. And then you had, like, printed internet.
A web page.
Yeah.
What a collector.
I'm, like, telling Ryan because he's, like, 10 years old.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's what it was like. It was I was probably your age when it came out. 8, 9. No, I was Well, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Can I throw in one more?
Yeah,
thing?
oh, yeah, you can.
Okay. Well, I just want to say appreciate the partnership and what you're doing, both mostly from an educational standpoint for your viewers and our customers. One thing I would tell you, as we hit on it earlier, is, treat your shotgun like a rifle. People listening, go out there and shoot it at a piece of paper. Check your point of aim, point of impact. Most shotguns do not shoot point of aim.
Jump on that real quick. Explain that, because that's I know what it is, but boy, is it true. Every shotgun I've had's been different.
Yes, and so explain that your point of aim, lining up the bead perfectly with your target and shooting it and seeing where the bulk or the center of your pattern actually hits. A lot of the Italian design shotguns are designed to shoot high.
Yep.
What I've been told is they prefer to dot the eye, so put the target above the bead.
A lot of those inertia-driven shotguns.
Yep.
I've noticed that with.
Yeah. And so and it changes from load to load slightly, from choke tube to choke tube, but it would help some people not look too foolish when they call me after they miss a turkey at 20 yards with my choke tube. It's a choke tube fault. I was like, have you shot it at a piece of paper yet? Well, no. Let's go do that. I bet you're hitting high or low or somewhere besides where you thought you were.
Which is insane because to the fairness of the person, like you think you buy a shotgun, you look down the bead, pull the trigger. What I even noticed is I've had guns that hit, 6 inches high and 4 inches left. And the gun will do that every time, and it'll change a little bit based on load and shotgun. But like, some shotguns shoot high, some shotguns shoot low, some shotguns shoot left, some shotguns shoot right. You're kind of luck of the draw. They should let you try out shotguns before you buy it.
Session.
You get it home and you're like, damn it, I got a lefty.
There is a misconception. It's funny just talking about this. Is like there's a misconception with non-hunters that like you pick up a shotgun, you shoot it, you'll hit because there's a spray. And then the way we're talking about it is like you still got to be pretty on.
Yeah.
Like it's not just pick up and shoot. So I guess that's the other component of the whole thing is you're a variable. So you should you should practice.
And the bulk of the information, like when someone's going to get a rifle, they're like, oh yeah, the scope has to be sighted in. You got to get the right bullet. It's like everyone accepts the things you have to do to be good with a rifle. But for some reason with a shotgun, it's like, well, the shotgun should just work.
Yeah.
But that's not true. And it's, if anything, it's more intricate.
Yeah.
You're talking about a nozzle, intricate for different situations, different loads. You're shooting at a dove with 8 shot. You're shooting at ducks with 2. Yeah, it's more complicated. But the point of aim thing really, I'm glad you said that because that really jacked me up where I was like, shit, I think I shot over that bird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The Greenway Outdoors is brought to you by Ram Trucks, built to serve. Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's, your adventure starts here. Savage Arms, Nosler Ammunition, Bosch Shot Shells, Wilderness Athlete, fuel for the rugged, Tracker Boats, fish the finest, Eagle Fishing, designed for the savvy angler, Rufus Teague Barbecues, Snacks, and Spices, Rectech Grills, it's more than a grill, it's a way of life, Sea-Doo, make your own waves, LEM Products, motivating people to hunt, process, and prepare their own food, Quiet Cat, the leader in electronic bikes for hunting, fishing, camping, and exploring. Consistency. That's what you aim for with every practice shot. So when you're out in the field, you get that same consistency every shot. With Carlson's choke tubes, consistency is what you'll get. Our choke tubes are long-lasting, high quality, and made right here in the USA. Carlson's choke tubes, pattern tested, hunter approved. Find out more at choketube.com.
Are you anxious to get going? Knowing that the clock is ticking and time truly is the most precious commodity in the world? Then you, my friend, are in good company.
One of the better pieces I picked up recently is one of those shot cams that mounts to your barrel. I took it out dove hunting, and there's some of those birds. I'm like, there is no way I missed it. And it's like, went back and watched the footage. I'm like, oh no, you were not even close, buddy.
Really?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's so good though. I'm gonna get one. I'm gonna talk to them.
Yeah, you were talking about that the other day.
I brought it up just
the same thing you were talking about.
Yeah, that was. I literally, and they've come a long way. I think they just came out with like the 6th generation stuff. I remember back when we were had like GoPros and stuff when we first started the show 8 years ago. We were like on GoPro Hero 4s or whatever back then. But like every mount they had, you'd shoot and the GoPro would like give up. Start looking at the sky as soon as you pull the trigger. Mm-hmm. It never really worked.
Yeah.
But
these things are pretty cool. They record in 4K, and then you can go frame by frame, and you can see the shot cup, the wad, everything come out, and then see the dove turn into pillow dust there. But
yeah,
that's pretty sweet.
It's a neat tool, and it's for any shooter from sporting clays to that. It's really telling on what actually happened during that shot.
Yeah, when we were duck hunting a few weeks ago, and I shot a mallard, and mallards do something where they're like, oh, crap, someone's shooting at me, and they do something when they're actually hit. And he got hit at least once, and feathers came down and this and that, and he went away. And I'd like to see why. It's been bothering me. You know what I mean? I like that. I wish I had it on for that to know like what took place. It was a big drake, you know, and like did a lot of pellets hit him, and that they're all in his vitals, and he flew 500 yards when I couldn't see him and dropped dead. Did it like I got him with a stray pellet, and I got lucky that I was even around him? You know, you just wonder.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, finish. I'm sorry, we cut you off because I got on the point of aim thing. That's what you were talking about at the time.
And then I guess the other thing is, once you get your point of aim, go pattern your gun and shoot a big enough piece of paper or cardboard so you can see. A lot of people will go get those turkey targets that are 8.5 by 11.
They do.
They're not seeing the bulk of the pattern or even the 11 by 18s. We strongly recommend at least a 3 foot by 3 foot with a center dot, and shoot it at 40 yards with your intended load. This is where the patterning machine is handy because, you know, for statistics and probability, you will see some variances from load to load. And I try to shoot a minimum of 10 rounds, throw out the outliers, and see if there's any sort of consistency there. And do that with each load. Like, even if it's 2 different flavors of Winchester number 2s, they're going to shoot differently. I also have consecutive serial number guns, same choke, same load. One of them absolutely eats up some Kent fast steel. The other one, it's okay, and vice versa. So
really,
no 2 gun will shoot the same. Choke, load, and ammo combination change ever so slightly.
No kidding.
So spend the money. I know it's not the most fun thing to go shoot at paper, but you'll end up with more ducks and less excuses if you know your equipment.
Yeah, no, it's totally true. I wanted to ask you one last thing. I know we keep wrapping up, but because you make so many choke tubes that are specialty for different loads, right? Like you have one for Black Cloud, you have one for, you know, on and on and on. So people go to the store and they see these different varieties of ammunitions. They pick one out, and then if they're in a pinch, they know that at least the Carlson's choke tube that matches their gun with that load written on it should do decent. Should at least be in the ballpark of doing pretty good. So that is something. So if you are going to be a lazy bum, that's the way to be a lazy bum. But my question is, specifically about the bismuth busters. That one, because we shoot Boss. What went into, like, okay, you're like, all right, we need a choke tube that's really good with this bismuth stuff. What went into that?
So with bismuth in particular, not speaking directly about Boss with the copper coating, but just straight bismuth. When it first came out, it very quickly was known that you needed to choke it down very tight to get the same pattern results as, say, with steel.
Okay.
Steel patterns slightly tighter out of a more open choke than bismuth would. And then some of the first bismuth loads were, 4, 5, 6 range in there, so a little bit smaller pellet than most people were shooting for geese or whatnot.
Sure. Because it's more dense than the steel.
Correct. And what was really telling on the patterning machine, that's where it's so handy is, we'll cut open 10 shells. We'll get the manufacturers, what their pellet count is, but we'll actually count them and average them. The variance amongst any manufacturer shot type, getting on tangent here, you'll see if it's supposed to be 4s, you'll see 2s and 3s in there if you're getting into the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, with bismuth, with the fracturing thing, so we have the pellet loads and we're shooting at 40 yards with pellet counts, and we're getting like 103% hit probability. And like
that's too many things.
So, exactly. And then you go up and visually inspect the paper, and you'll see some oblong tears and whatnot in there. So it's a lot of trial and error. With that particular one, we played with the parallel section a fair amount. So that is the portion in the choke that actually is the most efficient at controlling a pattern. The length of the parallel section is a crucial measurement. And for us, trying to, and then knowing that multiple companies were going to come out with their own flavor of bismuth, we could really pigeonhole it and say, hey, this choke tube is for this exact SKU of bismuth, and it performs really well. Or we have a couple thousand tolerance on either side and say, whoa, this is the sweet spot for all the bismuth.
Yeah.
That's a very general statement, but That's primarily how we go through, because we don't know what gun they're shooting, what load they're shooting. If they're hand loading, it's just made for that shot type and size.
Okay. So
or wad buffers.
But it had its own flavor of difficulties because of what it was. Yeah. Yeah, it's I noticed with that one you just called it Bismuth Buster. You didn't mess with trying to pigeonhole it with a specific load, which is probably smart. But what do you think you'll run into as far as tungsten goes? Because you guys I already shoot tungsten through your turkey chokes. So as tungsten continues to grow, what kind of difficulties do you think you'll have there?
I'm still playing with it, and I wouldn't necessarily call it difficulties, but as tungsten has graduated from your 7 through 10 shot, and you're getting more in the 4s, 3s, and now I believe Apex has some BBs out.
Shoot a goose at like 300 yards.
But with that, it's a much harder material, and that's another problem with being red-blooded Americans is we always want the fastest, hardest, biggest, whatever it is. And just brutally honest, boys, 3-inch shells pattern better than 3.5.
Right.
Period.
Right.
And same thing with hypersonic stuff. And then people always want the tightest choke possible. Well, overconstriction's a real thing. You'll actually get adverse patterns. There's a point of diminishing returns, and then you'll start to blow your patterns up by getting too tight. But my concern with the bigger tungsten, I guess not necessarily concern, is people over constricting it, and it's such a hard material that likely it will bulge or rupture barrels with the wrong choke tube in it.
Yeah, that's its own set of warnings then, huh?
Yeah.
Well, when the time comes, we'll make some videos.
But it's exciting stuff. That's some serious kinetic energy downrange in that. So
yeah, it's just so interesting with it being so dense. Obviously you shouldn't be taking 100-yard shots, but they're going to start become realistic pretty fast. I'm
pumped to see what it does in coyotes at this.
Oh yeah, that'll be a blast. One expensive coyote, but yeah, that'll be sweet.
Oh yeah,
they're expensive no matter what if you're hunting them, But well, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate the relationship very much. We're proud to be working with you guys, and proud to always say, Carlson's choke tube, the only choke tube we've ever purchased. Yeah. That's what they hear in every one of our ads. So we appreciate you very much, and we're excited about the future of the company, and we hope you have a good rest of your hunting season.
Well, thank you. You too.
Thank you, brother.
For more of The Greenway Outdoors, head over to thegreenwayoutdoors.com for our weekly video podcast, how-to videos, Greenway gear, and information on our shooting partners.